Okay. Is it the lead, Steve? We're good to go? Yeah? Well, good afternoon and welcome to Brisbane Airport. I would like to start today by acknowledging the Turrbal people and pay respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. As we think about sustainability today, I want to recognize the tremendous job the original custodians of this land did and the example they've set for us. Today is a milestone day for Brisbane Airport Corporation. We've been on a journey of sustainability for over a decade, but today is significant. BAC is pleased to announce we're entering into a 6-year agreement to purchase solar and wind farm energy from Stanwell Corporation. There are 500,000 businesses in Queensland, and I'm proud that Brisbane Airport Corporation is customer number 1 for Stanwell's renewable energy pipeline. From 2025, this will mean that Brisbane Airport Corporation will be net zero, 25 years earlier than first projected. We will be a global leader in sustainable airport management. This deal marks the end of our reliance on coal for power and a switch to solar and wind. It's a change from brown to green energy for a better planet. And what does it mean for our customers, our travellers and the community? Queenslanders can travel through our terminals knowing their journey begins and ends at one of the world's most sustainable airports once this green energy begins to flow from regional Queensland. This green energy deal delivers Brisbane Airport Corporation's commitment to be a sustainable, world-leading airport city. I can also announce today that we'll be expanding our own solar panel generation capacity here at Brisbane Airport as well, from 6 megawatts to 11. There are currently 18,000 solar panels across the airport and there will be thousands more. But today we're celebrating this new agreement between Stanwell Corporation and Brisbane Airport. I want to thank our partners, the Queensland Government and Stanwell Corporation, and now I will hand over to Queensland's Energy Minister Mick de Brenni, who will then throw to Michael O'Rourke, CEO of Stanwell Corporation. Thank you.
Thanks very much, GJ. Can I too also acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we're gathered today and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Can I acknowledge everybody at Brisbane Airports Corporation and also at Stanwell Corporation for this historic partnership that will see us eliminate emissions from airport operations here in Brisbane by 2025. This is the Queensland Energy and Jobs Plan in action. We committed to deliver $62 billion worth of investment. Some more happy travellers on their way. We committed $62 billion through the Queensland Energy and Jobs Plan to transition Queensland's economy from one reliant on fossil fuels to one that is supported by clean, publicly owned, Queensland-made energy. 2 large-scale renewable energy projects, the Clark Creek Wind Farm and the Bluegrass Solar Farm, will deliver 100% emissions-free electricity to the Brisbane Airport. And as GJ said, customers, our travellers who are coming to Brisbane, Queensland in their droves, want to see our government, their airport, make a difference in terms of their carbon footprint. And today's announcement demonstrates that we're taking real action on that. This is another demonstration that we are taking real action on climate change. We are so proud that Queenslanders have emphatically supported the public ownership of our power generators. They're publicly owned corporations like Stanwell. It means that we can lean into deals like this and make sure that we deliver what passengers are asking for, what Queenslanders are asking for and what global travellers are asking for. That is a reduction in their emissions and their carbon footprint. So I'd like to congratulate Brisbane Airports for their vision. We've heard today that this will be the first of its kind, a effectively emissions-free airport by 2025. Incredibly exciting. And it goes to demonstrate just how important it is that we have a plan for Queensland's economic transition through our Queensland Energy and Jobs Plan. I'd now like to hand over to the CEO of Stanwell Corporation, Michael O'Rourke, and then we're happy to take questions about this significant and historic day for air transport here in Queensland. Michael.
Thank you, Minister. I'd also like to pay my respects to the traditional owners of this land upon which we are having this press conference on today. So I am very proud to be standing here today with the Honourable Mick de Brenni, who's the Queensland Minister for Energy, Renewables and Hydrogen, and also the Brisbane Airport Corporation's Chief Executive Officer, Gert-Jan de Graaf, to announce Stanwell's first renewable energy project deal. We know the energy market is changing, and as a publicly owned generator, Stanwell must change with it. Stanwell has one of the largest commercial and industrial customer bases across the national electricity market. And those customers are coming to us, they are asking for clean, green, renewable energy. And with customers like the Brisbane Airport Corporation, we're able to aggregate up the renewable power projects that we have with the Bluegrass Solar Farm and also the Clark Creek Wind Farm, to aggregate that energy up and then be able to supply it through to customers like the Brisbane Airport Corporation. Stanwell will supply up to 185 gigawatt hours of renewable energy through to the Brisbane Airport Corporation over a 6-year period, and that will run everything from the lights on the runway all the way through to the terminals. At Stanwell, our plan is to develop a high quality, value for money pipeline of renewable energy assets, and which will then on-sell the output of those assets through to our customers. Thank you.
Happy to take any questions about the airport electricity issue announcement first.
The first thing that occurs to me is, how do you actually get the power to other connections to the grid?
Michael, this is probably best for you. Yep.
So the grid connections, how do they work?
The grid connection, so the Stanwell Corporation will purchase the power from the Bluegrass Solar and also through the Clark Creek Wind Energy, and the power will run through the normal transmission lines, through the normal distribution lines, through to the Brisbane Airport Corporation. Those connections are already in place. The Bluegrass Solar Farm is ready to, it has a ribbon cutting exercise on Wednesday where the actual solar farm will be generating electricity and providing that into the grid.
Are you confident you can have this done by 2025?
I'm very confident that we'll be able to supply the Brisbane Airport Corporation with renewable energy by 2025, yes.
Minister, you said that this is the first of its kind. The first of its kind in Australia, or comparative with other countries thinking of another plan?
Okay. So we're just going to wait for that plane to take off.
Sorry, it's not too close yet.
That's okay.
First of its kind, where, how does
I'll get Gert-Jan to talk about what he knows about the positioning globally, but as I understand it, this will be the first airport of its kind in the nation that will be emissions-free, supported by that publicly owned renewable energy. We're very, very proud of that. As we've heard earlier, this makes Queensland and the Brisbane Airport a global leader. That's been enabled because of our Queensland Energy and Jobs Plan and our publicly owned energy generator, Stanwell, aggregating these power purchase agreements to deliver this power. Customers are voting with their feet globally, whether it's in road transport or in their airlines. When they go to the grocery store, they want lower emissions products and services. We are responding to that. That's because that's what customers are asking for. DJ, do you want to talk about?
the noise pollution? Obviously, adding an extra runway, having a bunch more people heading up in Queensland, what are you guys going to do about that?
Oh, look, I think that the Brisbane Airport is doing a great job in terms of managing their operations. Of course, we've heard the aircraft taking off behind us here. They are noisy. I'm sure that everything that they can do is being done. But of course, we want to make sure that if there's more that can be done, then those actions will be taken. But I'm confident that Brisbane Airports is responding to concerns of travellers, of residents, and dealing with those issues responsibly. The transition to, I might ask GJ and Michael to talk about the details of the agreement around power. But when it comes to Well, the Energy and Jobs Plan is our $62 billion investment into the clean economy of the future. That isn't cost that will be directly borne by air travellers. That is an investment in a transition of our economy. We know that by 2032 the eyes of the world will be fairly and squarely focused here on Queensland when we host the Olympics and Paralympics. And whilst I understand that the terminal expansions and this significant and historic clean energy announcement today is not targeting the Olympics, it is good to know that it will make a contribution to our clear commitment to make sure that those games are delivered on a climate positive basis.
I guess what the question is that Jane, you probably now source the electricity from coal-fired power stations. You're about to phase in from renewable energy. What's the cost factor? Is it 10% less, 10% more, 18%? That's the question.
Yeah, there are no transition costs involved in this particular deal, but we're paying a little bit more in the future for green energy than we're currently paying for our power supply. But we're happy to do that because that's what investing in the future is all about. That's not only investing in runways or in terminal buildings, it's also in investing in a more sustainable future, more sustainable travel. And therefore I'm really proud to say that Brisbane Airport Corporation will be net zero in 25. Lots of airports globally are striving to become more sustainable and achieving sustainable growth. But this is, on a global scale, a novelty. The power purchasing agreement we're talking about today helps us significantly in achieving those goals, but it's not the only thing we're doing. We're also investing in our transition of our fleet of vehicles, electrifying those. We're running bus services on the airport with electric vehicles. There's a lawnmower behind me that's actually electrical as well. So there's a lot of other investments involved in making Brisbane Airport Corporation net zero in 2025, but this deal is instrumental.
5% more to use renewable energy or 10% more, and will that slide down over time?
It's difficult to say because it's a 6-year deal. And there's, of course, pricing related to volumes we will purchase. It is a little bit more expensive than today, but again, we're happy to invest that money in a more sustainable future.
Just talk about how is that going to help taxi times?
Yeah, we're in the process of planning.
Hang on a second.
Sure. We've an air perspective for landing and visitation to Queensland. Part of that is investing. We're planning with it's highly likely that it will be positioned in between the two runways, centrally at the airport. to minimize taxi distances and to maximize connectivity between the current domestic terminal and that new facility.
And what about noise pollution? Has anything been done to sort of deal with residents' noise pollution? How do you deal with that?
Yeah, very recently, Air Service Australia published a report that was done by an organization called Tracks International. In that report, there are over 50 recommendations for potential improvements to reduce the impact of the airport in terms of noise on the community. The next years are all about making sure that we're implementing those improvements and those suggestions, and by doing that, maximize the flights that we're doing over the bay and minimize the number of flights that are going over residential areas.
One of the recommendations, thanks Scott Jan for raising that, is that the Department of Defence is supposed to change the military window around RAF Base Amberley. In their wisdom, they don't answer journalist questions. Can you fill me in on how would that influence the window here? How would changing the air window over RAF Base Amberley make it more efficient or less efficient for Brisbane Airport Corporation?
Yeah, one of the 59 recommendations in the report was to look at how the airspace is actually being managed currently. The airspace close to Brisbane is not easy, with flights from east to west, north to south, quite well used by traffic to and from the Gold Coast and to and from the Sunshine Coast. And in addition to that, a large part of airspace is reserved for military operations. If that would be changed, that provides air services with more flexibility to operate flights to and from Brisbane Airport. That's how it should work.
Is it a significant factor or is it an insignificant factor?
It will contribute to better noise outcomes for the community, and that's what it's all about. There are no silver bullets, but a lot of opportunities to make the situation better than it is today.
Any other?
For other questions unrelated?
Okay, I'll take those. Thanks, Chicho. All right,
Have fun.
Thanks, Michael.
Mr. Rob, can I ask a couple of questions of you a little bit later?
Just while they're
Can I ask a couple of questions of you, Richard?
okay, Marlena, yeah.
Yeah, Minister, just first of all, we heard from the opposition earlier today on people who've been waiting longer than 24 hours in emergency departments. Almost 7,000 Queenslanders in the latest quarterly. Is that good enough?
Oh, look, I saw the member for Broadwater's press conference this morning, and we saw him criticise the operation of Queensland hospitals. But then when he was asked about what his plan was, he said that he couldn't tell us what his plan was. It's because they have no plan for Queensland hospitals. We learnt last week that their debt reduction plan was more cuts. Queenslanders have not forgotten that when the LNP was in government, and the member for Broadwater was part of this, they took an axe to Queensland hospitals. Over 4,000 health and hospital workers lost their jobs. You can't get people through emergency departments quicker if you're sacking nurses and doctors. That's their record, and unless they're able to reveal what their plan is, Queenslanders know they simply cannot trust the LNP on health.
That was there. And that was, yeah.
So what the government is doing now is that we're employing more nurses, more doctors, more ambulance officers, more paramedics. We're investing $10 billion in additional hospitals. We're building 7 satellite hospitals. We're building 3 brand new hospitals, $10 billion worth of investment. Clearly, there is a global strain on health and hospitals. We don't accept the premise of the member for Broadwater that the impact of COVID is not real. Australians know the impact of COVID is real. They know that it is harder today to get to see a GP than it ever has been. They know that there should be more aged care and disability places. The lack of access to GPs, aged care and disability care is a result of nearly a decade of the Morrison government and the LNP running down those systems. That is why our hospitals are stressed at the moment. If there'd been more aged care places, there'd be less elderly people in our hospitals. If there'd been more disability services, there'd be less people in our hospitals. If they'd actually built up a GP base, a bulk billing GP base, there'd be resources for people to be able to go to instead of going to their hospital. Queenslanders know how difficult it is to find a bulk billing GP. That's why they're showing up at their hospital. That's why we're very pleased that the Albanese government announced last week that they supported a 15% wage increase for aged care workers. Even if there was aged care places under the Morrison government's regime, would you go and work in aged care for the sort of pay that the Morrison government was giving them? I don't think so. And so steps have been taken at a national level. We're investing $10 billion. But I come back to this point, and I make this point. Queenslanders know that they can't trust the LNP when it comes to health. If they're going to cut, and that's their plan, then they need to tell Queenslanders exactly how they're going to improve health services at the same time as cutting resources for the health system. Oh, look, I'll have to ask the Chief Health Officer to respond to questions about hospital readiness for COVID. But what we've seen over the last few years is that our government was the first in the nation to take the COVID pandemic seriously. We have provided our health workers, our hospitals with the resources that they needed to manage Queensland through the global pandemic. And Queenslanders came through that pandemic and now Queensland is in a very, very strong position, both on a health basis and economically. I think that those men and women, those Queensland men and women who are on the front line of our health and hospital system are clearly the heroes of the pandemic, and we'll continue to support them. We know that there is concerns around the fourth wave. Of course, all of those messages around hygiene and getting tested and staying home if you need to still prevail given the circumstances that are confronting us today.
What about the statistics that he read off today? Over 7,000 people in the last 4 months have waited more than 24 hours for emergency room care. What does the state government have to say about those shocking statistics?
Well, let's be clear on the statistics as well. Every patient in a Category 1 status is seen within the clinically recommended times. That's 2 minutes. 100% of those patients are seen during that time. And so we're confident that our plan, $10 billion investment, more nurses, more doctors, more paramedics on the ground. But what really needs to be done is we need to deal with the GP crisis. Before the federal election in May, Queenslanders knew how hard it was becoming to find a GP. That's why they're showing up in emergency departments. They knew how hard it was to get elderly residents out of hospitals and into aged care. That's why we're proud that the Albanese government is supporting better aged care services. We know that there's a lack of disability spaces. They are the factors that are leading to this. And if the LNP has another plan, then they should tell us what that plan is. But the reality is they don't and they won't. They said today, the member for Broadwater said he would not say what his plan was. So all we know is their plan to cut. They've announced that, and we saw what happened last time. They had a plan to cut. 4,000 health workers lost their jobs, crippling services across the state.
Just on a couple of questions on the rental crisis. Do you know where the government's at with that review into short-term accommodation like Airbnbs? We're hearing from people who are saying they're being kicked out of their rentals because the owners want to come in and convert them into Airbnbs.
I'd have to refer matters about housing to the Housing Minister and the Minister for State Development, but we did announce last week that in my agency, Public Works, Q-Build is standing up a prefabricated factory just down the road here at Eagle Farm. We are pulling every lever possible to help Queenslanders find a safe, secure and affordable roof to put over their head. But you know, the reason that the housing system is under stress is that during the pandemic we saw billions of dollars of taxpayer money thrown at stimulus by the Morrison government. Not one additional social house was built. No support for low-income households, no results, $1 trillion worth of debt. We saw more people renovate their home and build a pool or a deck and not one single new social house. It was poorly targeted stimulus, and the result is that households are under pressure.
While that Airbnb review is still being done though, does it worry you that owners are perhaps rushing to convert their properties before any pending law changes so they can get in before, say, if you bring in a tax or something?
Oh, look, as a former Housing and Homelessness Minister myself, it concerns me that there are people who are struggling to pay their rent. It concerns me that there are people struggling to pay their mortgage. We know that cost of living is a concern for many Queenslanders. That's why we're doing everything that we can at a state level to put downward pressure on the cost of living. Right now, Queenslanders are receiving their $175 cost of living rebate. These are federal issues as a result of that poorly targeted stimulus that overcooked the housing market, has overcooked the construction industry. I'm very confident that my colleagues in the Palaszczuk cabinet are working day and night to work through those issues around short-term rentals, to get more housing into the market, to open up new opportunities for people to find rentals. But of course, we need to recognise that one of the challenges for many Australians is the ability to save a deposit to buy their own home. And that's because we've had a decade of real wage cuts. We've got inflation out of control, and that is the gift that Morrison left, that the LNP left this nation. They had 9 years to set our nation up for the future, to deal with these issues, and instead they racked up $1 trillion of debt throughout the COVID pandemic and nothing to show for it in terms of any social infrastructure. The housing stress that's out there at the moment is a direct result of their economic mismanagement.
There's some leaked audio today of police officers making disgusting racist comments. Does the QPS have a cultural problem?
Melanie, you're absolutely right. You described those comments as disgusting, abhorrent, they're deplorable. I think those people know who they are and they should be ashamed of themselves. I think most Australians are ashamed of them. I know that the Queensland Police Service will take the appropriate action, but individuals who are making remarks like that, and whether it's in the workplace or whether it's in public, it's simply not acceptable. When I read that this morning, and I could not believe that this was happening in 2022. I think the Queensland Police Service, the majority of the officers and the staff of the Queensland Police Service do an extraordinarily good job. It is a shame. There is a handful of individuals who think it's okay to speak like that or conduct themselves in that way. And I want to say this, that those men and women who are on the front line for the Queensland Police Service have our full support, and I know that the leadership of Queensland Police Service has our full support. I know that they'll take the appropriate action against those individuals who have made those abhorrent comments. I think the Queensland Police Service will make the right decisions about those matters in terms of whether or not those people should continue to be employed. I think that if they were my employees, I wouldn't continue to employ them. I think those individuals, as I said, they know who they are. I think that they would recognise that none of their workmates want them in or around their workplace if that's how they're going to conduct themselves.
Can I just ask a question about Brisbane Airport Corporation is a big customer of traditional coal-fired power stations at the minute. Over 6 years taking that out of the factor, what impact does that have on the end of life of, say, Stanwell and
So it's a very good question about the shift from the Brisbane Airport being reliant on coal-fired power to renewable energy. And I want to make this point as well. The renewable energy that Brisbane Airport uses over time will become cheaper and cheaper as we see more of it. There's a lot of talk around Australia at the moment about energy prices, and perhaps they're going up because of renewable energy. The reason energy prices are going up is because there is not enough renewable energy. It is global gas prices and global coal prices that are driving record high energy costs. And so what we need to do, and what we are doing through our $62 billion energy and jobs plan, is investing in a massive amount of new wind, solar, pumped hydro and batteries so that all Queenslanders have access to cheap, clean, renewable energy.
So how does that impact the end of life of Geelong and Stanwell?
So the question about how it impacts the end of life of coal-fired power stations is this. We have committed that our coal-fired power stations will remain open and we'll convert them to clean energy hubs. That's important because they are anchor employers in regional communities, and so every single one of the workers in our publicly owned power stations is entitled to a job security guarantee, backed by a $150 million fund to enable them to stay as part of the energy workforce. We've announced the dates upon which we'll convert our publicly owned coal-fired power stations to clean energy hubs. Our dates in relation to that take into account the conversion of energy use here at Brisbane Airport and across the economy. And we're very proud that that plan delivers a 96% reduction in electricity emissions by 2040 here in Queensland. That's what citizens want. People coming to this country, people coming to this state want to see real action on climate. They come here to visit beautiful places like the Great Barrier Reef. They don't want to see that destroyed, and so this action preserves that for generations to come.
Is that in the energy plan? Is it?
Yes. Yes, all those I don't have the dates off the top of my head, but what I can say is that across our publicly owned coal-fired fleet, our publicly owned coal-fired generation fleet, we will no longer rely on them from 2035. And in respect of privately owned coal-fired power stations, we will build enough wind, solar, we'll firm it with batteries and pumped hydro storage so that there won't be reliant on those either. This is about transitioning our economy from one where Queenslanders were some of the highest emitters of carbon in the world, we know the impact that's having on climate change, to being some of the lowest emitters in the world, and we're very, very proud of that. Anything else?
I'd just like to ask Mr. Woodrow.
Oh, from Michael? Okay. Come on over, Michael.
So Michael, obviously this is a fairly sizable customer. How does that affect the end of life of Toronto and Stanwell? Because you effectively make profit from them, so to speak, which you reinvest into other technologies. How does this affect you? And how does it affect those coal-fired power stations?
2 points to make around that. The Minister talked about the Queensland Energy Plan that's been recently announced, and so that talks about turning the Stanwell Power Station and Toronto Power Station, converting the units there into synchronous condensers, giving opportunities for our people to be able to work on batteries and also to be able to do operations and maintenance support of all the renewable energy projects that are being built around our power stations. We talked previously about the Clark Creek wind farm. That's located about 150 kilometres northwest of Rockhampton. That's close to the Stanwell Power Station. We're talking with Vestas, the EPC contractor for the Clark Creek wind farm, with opportunities to be able to provide services and maintenance support for our people at the Stanwell Power Station, supporting that particular wind farm.
Staff will transition.
We're transitioning into renewables, we're transitioning into batteries, we're transitioning into synchronous condensers, and we're supporting the grid, the national electricity grid, that way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for coming. Thank you for your time. Shall we have a look at the... do you want to grab the guys over? Come on, have a look.